On Sat With Me today, no stranger at IETV once more, as today I present to you a vocalist, instrumentalist, and classical Indian dancer, the very versatile and beautiful Miss Sangeeta Jagdeo. Welcome, Sangeeta.
Thank you.
So once more, you're here with us today. You were here with us last week as well. And for some of our viewers who didn't get a chance to join us or check out our Facebook page, Sangeeta is well trained in India. She studied for a couple of years in India in the fields of instrumental music, vocals, and classical Indian dance. She's also a scholarship holder. She was awarded a scholarship by the Government of India and the Indian Council for Cultural Relations for studies in Indian classical music and dance in India. Very, very happy to have you here once more, Sangeeta.
Thank you.
Today we're speaking about your organization. Remind us of the name of the organization.
The organization is Antarashtriya Sanskriti Pratishthaan, which means International Foundation for Cultural Relations of Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. And tell us, what is the work of your organization, Sangeeta?
Well, the organization started it was founded by my late father, Shri DirectorAntarashtriya Jagdeo, and the purpose of the organization was to promote and propagate the authentic art of Indian classical music and in general Indian music.
Right. And how long ago was it established?
It was informally. My father was conducting classes through various centers. It was, you can say, a total of about 4 decades.
Wow, that's 40
And it was
years.
voluntary, yeah. When I returned from India in 2002, the organization was formally structured, and we established formally the Antarashtriya Sanskriti Pratishthaan, but it was also launched in India.
Right.
We were supported by a lot of government ministers at that time, the High Commission of India, Trinidad and Tobago High Commission over there, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, the Arya Samaj movement. We had a lot of support from music directors, Sanjay Vidyarthi, who is Sarigamapa's music director at that time. We have, and also one person that was very instrumental in assisting in, who had been our external advisor, Dr. Shyam Singh Shashi. He was attached to the Indira Gandhi Open University. We also had the support of the then principal of the Sri Ram Bhartiya Kala Kendra Institute, which I was attending, the principal, Mrs. Meera Mahapatra,
Right.
who lent support in terms of the structure and the work that is supposed to be, the aims and objectives. And her husband also, Dr. Mahapatra, Chintamani Mahapatra, who is attached to the Jawaharlal Nehru University.
And tell us, what is the aims and objectives of your institution?
Well, Antarashtriya Sanskriti Pratishthan's main aim, as I said, is to propagate the art of Indian music,
Right.
to especially the authentic art of Indian classical music. See, because we believe that the base and foundation of all Indian music is Indian classical music.
Right.
And if we are to improve the standard, if we are to further develop and enhance Indian culture, then we must have a solid foundation
Right.
in the arts.
Right. And you have many students, of course. What is the age group roughly of your students?
We take, once the child can respond, can take instructions, because children develop at different rates.
Right.
So we don't say, okay, at 5 years we can take, because at that age, the early childhood years are the years where they're very receptive.
Right.
To information and knowledge. That's where all their cognitive development is happening, intellectual development, and at that stage, I think it's a very crucial age. So we don't limit. Once the child can. In fact, we encourage the parents to enroll children very early, See, the environment, it's a matter of nature and nurture.
Right.
If we look at it that way, nature would be our biological inheritance, our genes. There are children who are genetically inclined to music. It's in their genes.
Right.
It's something that they may not have to think, but they actually can do. They have the talent, the inborn talent.
Right.
And then we have where the environment sort of nurtures the individual child.
Right.
So then again, if the child may not be from a musical family, but is exposed to an environment where there's music, constantly, then it starts having that effect on the child. The child develops an inclination to that type of music. Yeah.
And that is so very true, because I have a son. He's 3 years old, and as soon as he could have sat up, he used to always want to play the drum.
Okay.
So his dad plays drum, and his grandfather plays the drum as well. And we would see him flipping over his toys and beating it. So my mother bought him a baby drum, and since then, from the time or the minute he hears a song or music comes on, he would drop whatever he has and call for a drum. So we encourage it, because yes, it is natural, and of course your institution nurtures it.
Yes, that what you just explained there is a perfect example of development, early childhood development.
Right.
And see, that is the time when the stages of development, you have noticed, that's where they are acquiring their language, their cognitive abilities. They're using their motor skills, enhancing their motor skills.
Right.
So the music plays an important part in the holistic development of the child. See, there are a lot of people that many students, we have had thousands, I can't say hundreds, thousands of people pass through the institution here in Trinidad. And whether they have come for a short time or a long time, many of them are here, many of them are living abroad. And that, whatever they have learned, has made an impact on their lives in some way.
Right.
They are successful in academic, in the arts, So the music plays an important role in the holistic development of the individual personality.
And of course, balance is necessary.
That's right. Yeah.
Right, and sometimes we tend to see students who balance with extracurricular activities perform better in schools.
Yes.
And for examinations.
At the institute now we have had students who are successful lawyers today, attorneys, doctors, and teachers, and engineers also in the medical field. They are specialists in the medical field. And these children, you can see that the parents didn't say to them, you have to study alone. Right, the music, and they religiously attended classes. So, and it helped them, obviously it has helped them, it has had that, balancing effect on their development.
Of course. And earlier on you were speaking in terms of Indian classical music being the root of the music in general. And of course that leads us to culture. It's part of our culture.
That's right.
Here in T&T. And how do you see our culture here in Trinidad and Tobago pertaining to Indian classical music and dance?
Well, first of all, in Trinidad and Tobago, if you defined culture, it would be like, I would say it's, yes, we are a multicultural nation, indeed.
Right.
And what that says is that each group of people that constitute this nation, they have acquired a unique cultural expression, reminiscence of a historical culture that they inherited from their respective ancestral lands. And in terms of Indian music, the culture has been preserved to an extent. In fact, it has been preserved to a great extent. In terms of not only music, but the traditions, the religious traditions
and
also.
Practices.
That's right. So that gives us an advantage in that. Now, Indian classical music in an effort to upgrade the standard, to keep, it's something that is always, you have to keep continuous learning.
Right.
Engage in continuous learning.
Right.
It is not something that you, just as I was saying, an assessment. It is important to do assessment, that you give yourself a self-evaluation as to how much you have achieved.
Right.
That is the purpose of the examinations. But in terms of Indian classical music, you have to develop. Continuous development takes place.
Of course.
Because there is change happening.
Right.
And in an effort to do that, you must learn. You must engage continuously in the learning process. In Trinidad, it is important that we continue in the pattern of Indian classical music in an effort to enhance what we have preserved, what has been preserved and handed down. See, right now we have imitation, a lot of imitation happening from India in terms of the film music and all of that. But if the individual learns Indian classical music, they can also create for themselves. They can experiment, they will have the knowledge then, based on the rules and regulations that govern Indian classical music, how to create and compose within those rules.
Right. And Sangeeta, what is the roots of Indian classical music? Yes, we inherited it from India. You studied Indian classical music in India. What exactly is the root of the music?
The root of Indian classical music comes from the spiritual background of the Samved philosophy.
Okay.
The 4 Vedas that we have, Rig Ved, Yajurved, Samved, Atharvaved.
Right.
Now Samved has given us that, the Indian classical music is rooted from the Samved.
Right.
And that is thousands and thousands of years. It is, the Vedas basically are the revelation of the universe.
Okay.
Adapted by different cultures in different forms. And it is also scientific yet spiritual.
Right.
Now where science stops, spirituality begins.
Right. I see.
Right?
I see.
This is one of the thinking that in terms of Indian classical, because the Indian classical music has a spiritual base. It helps to connect the individual, to connect with the self. And once it brings you closer to the self, you can understand your true identity.
Right.
You can also identify your true purpose.
So it's like a musical meditation?
That's right. Indian classical music is one of the highest forms of meditation.
Right, and many of us didn't know that.
Because, see, Indian classical music, with the sound, the vibrations, it's connected to your central nervous. It affects your central nervous system.
Right.
Right? So everything in nature is tuned. For example, a very important element of Indian classical music is the concept of tal. Tal is the rhythmic cycle of beats, right? Fixed patterns of beats. Now, if we look, now without tal, tal is something that you must use in vocal, instrumental and dance. And Indian classical music is based on all 3 forms. And they are interrelated.
Right.
Vocal, you need instrumental. Instrumental, you need vocal. And dance, you need both
of them, instrumental and vocal.
So the important thing is the concept of tal is used in all 3 forms of Indian classical music. See, for example, the earth spins on the axis. If there is one single microsecond of imbalance and it goes out of the rhythm, we call the rhythm in tal, it's called lay. If the lay goes off, the entire world can be destroyed.
Wow.
So that is the pattern. If you look at the clock, the second hand goes tick, tick, it doesn't go tick, 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 tick,
Right.
So that maintain the rhythm. It's the same way of breathing, the heart rate, the body, everything functions. So the science of Indian classical music is also related to the human being and the human development.
It does, because sometimes from the minute you hear sitar, just like the sitar strums, it may fasten your heartbeat may quicken. Some persons, their pulse moves. Whether it's a sitar or any note of music, once you're inclined to the music, you feel it within your body.
It's because of what we call bhav, expression, and also emotions, the ras. Each, one of the basis of Indian classical music is the rag system. The rag is a special combination of the 7 main notes.
Right.
But it has fixed rules and regulations that govern it.
Right.
The ragas are also like human beings, but they're like devtas, devis, devtas. They're also feminine ragas and masculine ragas.
Really?
Yes.
In notes.
That's right. And they also they have what you call gayan samay, which is time of singing. You have ragas that are tuned to nature in the morning, and ragas are tuned to the day, ragas tuned to the evening, and ragas tuned at night, midnight.
Right.
So there are different, and the reason for this, it's because it coincides with the nature.
Right.
Nature and also the human being. That's why you feel that emotion. Then if you look again, we spoke of the forms of Indian music. That will be vocal, instrumental, and dance. Now, if you look at the categories of Indian music, then you go into the classical music, the semi-classical. Now, all of these categories of music, if you were to listen, you feel different. Each one evokes a different emotion in the individual.
Right.
The folk music, you feel different. And the same thing when you go now and you sit in the mandir, you feel bhakti, devotion.
Yes.
So it evokes that kind of devotional feeling in you. So this is a science of Indian classical music, and that's just, that's just a tip of the...
Right, the iceberg, literally speaking. But Sangeeta, so one doesn't just go and sit and sing a note or pull a note. You must be inclined and you must be positioned mentally and emotionally to pull that.
Yes, yes. See, every note, we have what is called swara notes, but each note has its own sound, its own pitch. And once it is sung, the ragas are sung properly, the notes are, the proper swara is there. It has so many different effects on the individual person.
Right.
Even the mantras that you recite, it is written with the notes of Indian music. It's written.
Right.
And it is mostly in Bhairav Tat, what we call Rag Bhairav. And Rag Bhairav is what we call the Adi Rag. It's considered one of the first ragas. And that the mantras are structured within that. So it evoked that feeling of devotion.
Right. And your institution, it provides, of course, pronunciation as well.
Yes.
How do you start a student when it comes, like a vocalist, an upcoming or potential vocalist? How do you start that student off?
Well, the advantage that we have in Trinidad is that students, everybody in this country is exposed to the Hindi language via media, via the radio, Indian movies,
right.
And the songs also they are so they are exposed to it. But at times some people may not pronounce. See, the Hindi language is very meticulous. In terms of meaning and words and all of these things. But at the Institute, what we do, we have made Hindi language compulsory.
Yes.
You must learn Hindi language, and the Hindi language is free, of course. We don't charge money for that.
Right.
See, the base of Indian music, the base of Indian culture is language. Even in the initial 8 years of a child, the first domains of development would be, that has an influence on all the other domains, would be language and literacy.
Right.
Language and literacy development.
It is.
Where the child first learns, the sound, can identify letters and also associate letters with sound. So the basis, the foundation for learning the Indian culture and music is the language. Once you know your language, you can do your research, you can properly understand your culture.
And it would, of course, come naturally.
Now, what we emphasize at the Institute would be the reading, writing, and conversational Hindi. That's what we...
Right, as a base.
As a base. So what we're doing, it's not that you can also learn it as a subject, but you can also do it while you're studying, because I use the terms, while teaching, you use the terms to introduce the student to it.
Right.
So it becomes automatically,
Right. And of course, there is repetition.
Repetition, most important.
Right.
Yeah.
Repetition is definitely a must.
Must, yes.
So tell us, you have a concert coming up.
Yes, this is a concert. We normally do have concerts to feature, create the forum for the young students to perform.
Right.
This one we are doing a fundraiser event. It's on Saturday 19th of May at the Center Point Mall Auditorium. It's an evening of cultural expressions.
Right.
And we have tried in this program. We have invited artists to come in from all over the country. We are also featuring the students of the Institute, past students of the Institute in this fundraiser. The purpose, however, of this fundraiser is to for the restoration and upgrade of the facilities of the school. We had some, flooding, damages. So the purpose of it is to upgrade and restore the infrastructural aspect of the school, and also to replace the musical instruments and the upcoming educational projects. We intend to do some workshops and introducing Indian classical music, and also we have another part of the institution where we are going into the spiritual aspect of the culture. In that we will be having workshops to discuss what about the Vedas, the history and culture of India,
Right.
and get a background into some of the intricacies of Indian music. In terms of the spiritual aspect, we are doing workshops on the 16 Sanskars, Introduction to Vedic Studies.
Right. And Sangeeta, tell us some of the artists so far that you have lined up.
Okay, some
that
of the
day.
artists, as I said, they're very young people, they're middle-aged people. We have invited a lot of them. We have students, first of all, performing in the beginning. We have Amit Suknanan, who is a counselor, and also he has been with the Institute for almost 8 years.
Right.
Reshmi Ramdas, she's one of the senior students. She'll be doing a classical Kathak dance recitals, and I've also asked her to do some semi-classical performances, like what we spoke about,
Right.
The film music.
Right.
So
Incorporate Bollywood as well.
that's right, and she will also be incorporating the classical dance into the
Bollywood?
not Bollywood, but the film music, semi-classical.
Wow. Okay, great.
Right. So we have also Matthew Capson. Now, the institute again is open to everybody. Everyone can come. It's not limited to anybody. Any religion, culture can learn once you are interested in learning Indian music.
Right.
So we have students, Matthew Capson, his sister Tanuja. They will be supporting each other in tabla solo. Some of the junior students who have just started, but we have made arrangements for them they're very excited to perform for the first time. We have Ambika Maharaj, she'll be doing a tabla solo performance. Jayashri Maharaj, Keshav and Divish, they are going to do classical music performances. Akash Ganga, he's also a student of the institute, and he's a performing artist in Trinidad. Roshan Mangru is going to do classical dance as well as semi-classical. We have Taramati Maharaj, I spoke to you about. She's a woman.
Yes. Who plays the harmonium, is it?
No, not harmonica.
Harmonica.
And she's also a very good bassuri player.
Yes.
She will be, we have given her the opportunity to launch her first CD on this program also.
Right.
So then we have Sangeeta Hariprasad, who is a vocalist, Viram, who's a vocalist, Dhanraj Singh, Shalini Jutaram, a dance performer, Reshma Ramlal, Shelly Ganesh, and we will also be having some guest artists from India.
From India?
Yeah.
Wow. And you were saying that, you're mentioning that you have some young students doing tabla performances.
Yeah.
And that struck my interest. What other instruments do you teach there?
At the institute, currently we have tabla classes, keyboards, harmonium, and sitar. Now, in terms of the tabla, as I said, we have an empaneled group of eminent artists that are world artists that are the external advisors to the organization. From time to time, these artists would come in and do workshops, and the students get the specialized training. I initially take the introduction intermediate students, and based on their levels that I see, if they need and further instructions, I expose them to these eminent artists so that they can guide them.
Children tabla, you're going to the depths of learning it.
See, that's the purpose of it. For many years in this country, we have had teaching of music, learning of music. But the aim of this organization, I think it is, in fact, something that my father had, his main aim was to develop further, lift the standard.
Right.
See, you can perform, everybody perform, but you want that the student must perform at international level.
Right.
See, in terms of if they want to perform, they perform at an international level.
Right.
And this is what we would mold them for. See, and as a teacher, my duty, my purpose is to guide. I educate myself first and then I passed on. Our motto again, learn, practice and teach. So when we learn, even the students are encouraged to learn, practice what they have learned, and they must continue the teaching.
Really?
That's what the institute, you see, the institute is simply a building, but what the real mission and the real vision of the institute would be, that's how we're going to have continuity.
Right.
It's not that
And to all of our viewers, in case you missed today's interview, join us on our Facebook page, IETV News Trinidad and Tobago,